Welcome into another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today I have my 5 takeaways series. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's go. So first takeaway is that Chuba Hubbard is a 2024 league winner. At some point, we have to move on from what might have been with Jonathan Brooks and Chuba Hubbard. Since Brooks was drafted, there's been a lot of bad things. His first ACL recovery was majorly delayed. Hubbard then played exceptionally well in his absence. Then Hubbard got a contract extension. Then Brooks tore the same ACL again. So 4 separate events have shifted this backfield toward Hubbard. Look, I don't expect Brooks to be relevant in 2025, and who knows what will happen in 2026. So at this point, we have to evaluate what Hubbard is, not what Hubbard was. Those are not the same thing. So this week, Hubbard had 25 carries, 152 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including that really good overtime touchdown run, and 4 catches for 13 yards on 5 targets. He played almost all the snaps despite the game going to overtime. And I would say Hubbard, not Bryce Young, was the main impetus behind the Panthers' victory in this game. Although I will say Young's scrambling ability might have helped open up some rushing lanes for Hubbard. Now, what do we do here? Well, I'd consider selling Chuba Hubbard if the haul is high. Now, Hubbard's entire 2025 salary is guaranteed, and so is the majority of a 2026 cap hit, which isn't even high to begin with. So he's going to be there for the next 2 years. At this point, I'm assuming Hubbard's the starter for 2025. I don't see how that's not going to happen. We'll see about 2026, but that's almost every running back. How many running backs have a 2-year guaranteed job? Not that many, very few. Now, the Panthers will bring in a backup or a complement running back to Hubbard. Brooks is out for all of next year, in my eyes. Miles Sanders is going to be cut. But they didn't plan to lose both of those players in season. They're not going to play Chuba Hubbard at a 90% snap share next year. They're going to bring in some help. But they're not going to bring in a new starter ahead of Hubbard after they just signed him to a contract extension and drafted Brooks in the second round of 2025. So if you're, or 2024. So if you're selling to someone who believes Hubbard is a fantasy RB1, which that I'm not sure about. But you have to get good value. So what is good value? Okay, you could sell him for Tua in a super flex. That's good value. I'd rather have Tua in a super flex dynasty league over Chuba Hubbard. Or 25 first. I like Hubbard. Is Hubbard ever going to be worth the first? At his age, skill level, and draft capital, probably never. So this is the most you'll ever get. So I'm fine selling at this cost. But if you can't get a good offer, you can hold Chuba Hubbard. I'm not concerned about holding Chuba Hubbard in the off season. Now, second takeaway, and this was going to be one of my 5, pretty much no matter how it went, was that Michael Penix looked okay in his first start. I thought it was okay. He went 18 of 27 for 202 yards, an interception, and 4 carries for 3 yards. That interception is a joke. He delivered a good pass to Kyle Pitts. And then Kyle Pitts, I don't know what he was doing. He threw the ball in the air, and a defender caught it. That should have been a fumble. I mean, I don't see how that was an interception, but whatever. The Falcons also had 2 pick sixes on defense that prevented the need for Penix really to do anything. The Giants only scored 7 points. The Falcons' defense scored 14. So he didn't need to do anything. He averaged 7.5 yards per attempt, did not take any sacks, which is good. Completed 2/3 of his passes, which is good. He was an improvement over what Cousins had been over the past few weeks. Although nothing special from Michael Penix in this game. Pitts was a joke. 1 catch for 7 yards on 2 targets. Who knows what he was doing on that play? He played fewer snaps than Charlie Warner again, was ignored both before and after the disastrous play. Pitts is not it, no matter the quarterback. And I don't care how many narratives there are in the offseason. I'm done. I'm done with Kyle Pitts. Done. Finished. He's not what he was. I don't know how that happened, but we were at a point of I'm finished with Kyle Pitts. Someone else can deal with it, but he's not going to be my problem. Drake London, 5 catches, 59 yards, and 8 targets. In the earlier part of the game, he was the clear first read for Penix in the scripted plays, just like he was with Cousins. Too bad London didn't come down with that end zone target. Maybe it was a catchable ball. He did have a hamstring injury late in the game. I think if it had been a close game, he would have gone back in. That's what Raheem Morris said after the game. But London's still the wide receiver 1 here. That has not changed. Darnell Mooney, 5 catches, 82 yards on 6 targets. I was kind of happy that the Falcons let Penix rip a few deeper balls to Mooney. We did see that. So Penix, I think, is going to help Mooney versus what Cousins was delivering with his dead arm. But there's not much to do with Mooney. We kind of know what he is. He's a nice dynasty asset. And I'm just happy to see that Michael Penix was able to deliver him the ball. Now, what do? I'm fine exploring the Michael Penix market. I think this debut could be taken both ways. Some might look at the box score only. You didn't watch the game and just look at the box score. You'd say he's horrible. I mean, for fantasy, he was horrible. If you just look at the fantasy points, Penix was horrible. But some might say, well, it was 34-70. Must have been great. I don't know. I mean, he was decent. I wasn't the biggest fan of him as a prospect, but he was decent in this debut. I saw some trades more on the buying side than the selling. Buy Michael Penix for Terry McLaurin to Superflex League. I'd rather have Michael Penix here. But then there was one to sell Michael Penix, Keon Coleman in 25 seconds for Malik Neighbors. I mean, whatever all those other assets are, they're not Malik Neighbors. So I would easily do this deal to get Malik Neighbors. But more of the deals, I say, were on the buying side than the selling side for Michael Penix. Now, takeaway number 3. Zach Charbonnet will never, ever compete with a healthy Kenneth Walker. This week, I got a zillion start-sit questions about Walker and Charbonnet, and I had Walker higher, but I really thought Charbonnet would compete and take some of the work because of how well he played when Walker was out. There was the whole Charbonnet as a starter, he was captain thing. That didn't happen at all. Walker had 8 carries for 31 yards, 8 catches for 28 yards and 8 targets. Not like Walker was great, but the Seahawks kept feeding him, played more than double Charbonnet snaps despite leaving with an ankle injury. I don't know if Walker's going to be back next week. I don't think so. But I'm done believing that this is going to change. When Walker is healthy, he's the clear starter. Charbonnet's just a handcuff. That's not going to change. It was that way with the old coaching staff. It's that way with this coaching staff. It is not going to change. Charbonnet was totally uninvolved. 1 carry for -1 yards, 2 catches, 14 yards on 2 targets, 0 touches in the first half. Kenny McIntosh got more involved before Charbonnet. Now, Charbonnet was dealing with a oblique injury, so maybe that contributed. But the fact that Walker wasn't healthy either and was just restored to the workhorse role tells me that that's what's going to keep happening. Walker is going to be the workhorse. Zach Charbonnet is going to be the backup. That is not going to change, ever. Now, if you can still trade, now might be a good time to sell Charbonnet because I fully believe Walker's going to miss the Thursday game. The Seahawks have nothing to play for. That game actually does not matter. The Rams can clinch the division by winning this game against the Cardinals. And if they lose, then the Seahawks can win the division by beating the Rams in the final week. So the Seahawks game is actually irrelevant to their playoff hopes. And Walker's not going to play. So Charbonnet will be a workhorse and will be extremely valuable for teams still alive in the playoffs. But we see that Charbonnet will never, ever overtake Kenneth Walker. And I think the Seahawks will extend Kenneth Walker. And Charbonnet's only chance at a long-term starting job will be if Walker suffers a serious injury or when Charbonnet goes to a new team. It's not happening here. It's just not. So, if you sell Zach Charbonnet and Chris Olave for Garrett Wilson, this was in the trade database. I would absolutely do that. I'd much rather have Garrett Wilson than risk Chris Olave. And then 225 seconds. Maybe you could do that this week if someone needs Zach Charbonnet and trades are still open. If not, wait until the offseason and then you can move on from Zach Charbonnet. Maybe there's a window at some point then. If you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. Right now, I'm offering a 50% discount on your first month at all tiers using the code TylerYT. You get my rankings, access to the Discord, and the ability to ask in advance questions for the YouTube videos. Tiers begin at just $6 a month, $3 with discount, and include all of that. If you want to know more about the Patreon, check out my Why You Should Join the Patreon videos on the channel. I'm probably going to do a new one at the start of the offseason, but they detail everything that I'm offering on there. And, you know, I'm always active on the Patreon. I don't take days off on the Patreon. This week, there's not going to be a Wednesday video because releasing it into Christmas is the death of YouTube. Not going to work in the YouTube algorithm. It's going to fail. But on the Patreon, I'm not concerned about the algorithm. I'm always there delivering content to the patrons because there is no algorithm. So if you want my content 365 days a year, the Patreon is the only way to get it. The YouTube, I think we're going to dial that back, especially early in the offseason. But the Patreon will never quit. So if you're interested in my content, and especially more in the offseason, please join the Patreon. And I appreciate everyone who signs up. With that said, we'll get into my next takeaway. So this is actually the second straight week that the entire Bills receiving core had no standout players. But last week, the Bills scored 48 points. So at least some players were okay. This week, the Bills' leading receiver, James Cook, 3 catches, 26 yards, and a touchdown. No other player had more than 25 receiving yards. Only Dalton Kincaid had more than 2 catches. He had 4. And it was bad across the board. I mean, Khalil Shakir, 2 catches, 22 yards on 6 targets. He was the lead wide receiver, but even he didn't play a full snap share. He was the closest thing we had to that. Keon Coleman, 1 catch, 17 yards on 2 targets. He fell to third in snaps and routes run behind Shakir and Mac Hollins. I worry. Coleman feels like just one of many type wide receiver. He's not going to stand out. Amari Cooper, 1 catch for 10 yards on 2 targets. I mean, if this is how they're going to use him, are they going to spend $20 million next year to retain him as an unrestricted free agent? He's going to draw money. I mean, he was good on the Browns. So he was 4th in snaps among wide receivers. I don't know if the Bills are going to bring him back. And even if they do, are we going to be excited about him? Dalton Kincaid, 4 catches for 15 yards and 7 targets, but last among receiving weapons in snaps. Dawson Knox played more. I mean, we're talking about someone who played 20 snaps, and the Bills were losing for a lot of this game. How can we trust such a player? We can't. So I think what we have to do is consider selling all of these players, all of them. I'm just concerned we valued all of these players because of Josh Allen. And while Allen is great, none of the weapons are standing out. It feels like we rotate all of them every game, and non-fantasy plays like Dawson Knox, Mac Hollins, and Ty Johnson are far, far too involved compared to the ones we're actually playing in fantasy. If you can't stand out in target share versus those guys, maybe you shouldn't be valued super highly. And James Cook being dominant is not helping the passing game. I will say, I have to give some credit to Khalil Shakir. He's actually been somewhat consistent. 5.2 catches and 56.9 yards a game. No one else is even at 4 catches or 50 yards a game, let alone both. So no one else is giving you any PPR floor other than Khalil Shakir. And that's with Allen playing at an MVP level. What if there's some regression? So all of these players, I feel like, are just pieces. They're not, target hogs are valuable in their own right, except maybe for Khalil Shakir. So I came up with some ideas for selling all these players. Could you get someone less exciting for Keon Coleman, like Josh Downs? People aren't as into Josh Downs, but I would rather have Josh Downs over Keon Coleman. Maybe could you combine Khalil Shakir and Marquise Brown, who played well in his return, for Jaden Reed? I still would rather have Jaden Reed. I just think Jaden Reed is a better player than Khalil Shakir. Get rid of Amari Cooper for Jerry Jeudy, who had a down game this week, but I think Jerry Jeudy, he's 5 years younger than Amari Cooper. I have more hope for Jerry Jeudy. And then Dalton Kincaid, could you get 25 first for him in Superflex tight end premium? I am not saying I dislike Dalton Kincaid, but are you going to win your league in a tight end premium behind Dalton Kincaid? No. Does that mean he's worth a first? Then no. So I'd be happy to get rid of Dalton Kincaid if people are still thinking, oh, he's going to be a superstar. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. I think he's good, but a superstar, no. So I'd look to move on from all these players. Now, my final takeaway is Keenan Allen is reviving himself. So over the earlier part of the year, Allen hadn't done much, but lately he's been great. This game, 9 catches, 141 yards, touchdown on 13 targets. He remained ahead of Odunze in targets and routes run, and Allen was the main reason for Caleb Williams' good game here. DJ Moore is kind of in his role. He has 7 catches for 68 yards and 10 targets. He's getting some rushing work here and there. Moore was fine. I still think Moore is a good, trustable fantasy asset that we can trust. Problem is Odunze. I mean, 4 catches, 77 yards, and 7 targets. He lost a fumble, should have been 2 fumbles because he's really responsible for that botched handoff, not Williams. And I'm a little worried. So I don't know what to say really about Odunze, but it is concerning that Keenan Allen looks a lot better than Odunze, even this far into this year. But what would I do? I think you got to consider selling Keenan Allen. So over the earlier part of the year, Allen was looking done. He missed 2 games due to injury and did little in the 8 games he played. In the first 8 games, 30 catches, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, 56 targets, 3.8 catches, and 35.3 yards a game. I mean, that would be done, basically. We're not interested in that player. But somehow over the last 5 weeks, 32 catches, so more catches in 5 games than 8, and then 412 yards, 5 touchdowns, 54 targets, 6.4 catches, and 82.4 yards a game. So that's basically back to being a really, really great player. Problem is Keenan Allen going to be back on the Bears? I doubt it. I think another team is going to be more interested in him. The Bears have DJ Moore on a big contract. They have Odunze. Are they also going to pay Keenan Allen the most of potential suitors in free agency? I don't think so. So, I think he'll be elsewhere, and I'm not sure that, if you just bet against every wide receiver past 31 or 32 changing teams, you basically would never have missed on anyone good. So, it's hard. And most of the track record is really bad, like Julio Jones, that kind of player at the end of their career. So I am very concerned about Keenan Allen. I'm not valuing him very highly. And this one, I love this, to buy low on Marvin Harrison Jr., combine Keenan Allen and Kyren Williams to get Marvin Harrison Jr. I love that. And then if you're selling Keenan Allen, this is probably greedy, but a 25 second and third, I'd just move on. It's great that Keenan Allen is doing something now. Is Keenan Allen still going to be really good at 33, probably on a new team? Maybe, but I'm not betting on that. I'm going to bet against him moving forward. Now, got one big piece of NFL news, and honestly, it's a sad one. Tank Dell, the knee injury, and this is brutal. This is a brutal knee injury. I mean, he tore his ACL, we know now, dislocated his kneecap, and suffered other damage, whatever that is. We don't know. It's probably other ligaments, could be meniscus, other things. So we don't know exactly what that is, but it's not good. Dell was having his best game of the year before the injury. 6 catches, 98 yards, touchdown on 7 targets. I mean, I saw Deepak Chona, one of my favorite injury analysts, posted on X that he expects Dell to miss the entire 2025 season. I agree with just the ACL tear week 1 would be a stretch. Now a dislocated kneecap. There's other damage. I can't see Dell being ready in 2025. I don't think so. There's nothing you can do. If you have existing Dell shares, you just put him on your IR and you just hold him. As for acquiring new shares, I have no interest in that. If this was a superstar, maybe, but we're talking about a player that up until this game was one of the most disappointing players all year. And am I going to wait for a player who's going to be almost 27 by the next time they play, who hadn't been good the last time we saw him? No. So it sucks. I don't think we're ever getting 2023 Dell back. And it just sucks. It sucks. And I think there's not much else to say. But, the Texans are going to have to acquire new wide receivers for next year. And we'll see how they replace Dell and Stephon Diggs as well after his injury. Now, let's move into some Patreon questions. Who do you predict are going to be some of your favorite offseason wide receiver buys? Well, Marvin Harrison Jr., talked about him a little bit earlier. I think he'll be on my list for sure. Maybe some underappreciated players like Chris Olave, if people are fading too much because of the concussion. Garrett Wilson could be on my list. Been a target hog all 3 seasons in his NFL career. So he could be on my list for sure. And then I still think people are too low on Malik Neighbors, as weird as that is. They're not valuing him like they should. He is one of the most targeted rookie wide receivers ever, if not the most. So this is an elite player, and he should be valued as such. Speaking of Malik Neighbors, what's the best situation we can look forward to for the Giants offense next year? Malik Neighbors' outlook, how to manage him? I don't know. I mean, I'm not confident in the rookie quarterbacks in this class, but I hope the Giants stay at 1 overall, draft their choice of Sanders or Ward. They can get a quarterback without having to deplete their other picks. And then I don't know. Are they going to retain Darius Slayton? Are they going to invest at running back? I'm not sure, but I'm fully confident in Malik Neighbors. He's averaging almost 12 targets a game as a rookie. So, yeah, I mean, that's more volume than even the most elite of the elite wide receivers have in any year. So, yeah, zero doubt in Malik Neighbors. Last question. What are your early thoughts on the 2025 rookie class compared to the 2024 class? Seems weaker across the board. Yeah, I mean, the 2024 class was far stronger at quarterback and wide receiver. The top 3 quarterbacks in 2024 are light years better than anyone from 2025. I think JJ McCarthy, Penix, and Nix would be kind of all in the mix with Sanders and Ward if they were in the same class. As for wide receiver, 2024 class was a lot stronger. The only really top tier player in this class is Tet. But the 2025 class is far stronger at running back. The RB 6 to 7 this year would have easily been the RB 3 last year behind maybe Brooks and Benson. But yeah, I mean, there are 7 running backs that were better than the RB 3 last year. And there's no Brock Bowers, of course, but Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland at tight end would be better than the other tight ends from last year. So tight end 1 is far weaker, but the tight end 2 is far stronger. So it's weaker at quarterback, but overall, it's not the worst class I think I've ever seen. Now, if you like the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, it's available on the Patreon. 50% discount at all tiers using the code TylerYT. Click on that link, patreon.com/fantasyadvice to sign up. And every sign up helps support my independent fantasy football content. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.